Hey guys, today we're going to be doing an updated top 10 characters in Dragon Ball Legends video. With the release of the Dragon Ball Super Superhero banner featuring Beast Gohan, Pan, and Power Awakening Piccolo, we've seen one of the biggest impacts, I would argue, on the meta in this game from a single banner in a very, very long time. So I definitely feel like an updated video is warranted at this point. However, I'm going to be changing the way I do these videos, and what I'm going to be doing moving forward is actually just cutting out the honorable mentions portion of the video. At this point, I would argue that there are a lot of units that could potentially fit into the honorable mentions category, and for now, I just want to focus solely on what I consider to be the top 10 characters in the current meta of the game. Now, for this list in particular, I would easily say that this has been, without a doubt, the hardest top 10 list I've ever had to make. Outside of like the top 2 spots on this list, you could legitimately reorder the entire rest of this list, and I would be completely okay with that. There's just so much that's changed with the release of the most recent units that if you look at this list that I'm about to show you, and you compare this list to my previous top 10 list, which was honestly not that long ago, it's just crazy how much things have changed in such a short period of time. Now, before we actually go ahead and jump into the list itself, as always, there are a few things I want to just preface this video with. So number one, this list is entirely my opinion and based off of my personal experience both playing with and playing against these characters in PvP. So if you feel differently about the placements for, some characters, or you feel that there were maybe some characters left off the list that should have been on it, feel free to let me know down below in the comments. Number two, I am going to be judging every character on this list at 14 stars on their best teams with their best equipment. So essentially, each character is going to be judged in their optimal situations. And then number three, just because a character might be ranked higher or lower than another character does not mean that they're better or worse than that character. I like to view these videos not as, which units are definitively better than others, but more so as a unit snapshot list, aka, which units are better in the current meta environment when compared to others. And I guess that's the main reason why, if you, again, compare the rankings on this video to the rankings on my previous top 10 video, there is such a massive difference there. So, and then lastly, for this list in particular, I'm going to start with number 1 on the list, and then I'm actually going to continue from number 10 through number 2. So just because I feel like the entire rest of the game depends so much on the character number 1, that's what we're going to be doing. And if you guys remember a few lists ago, I believe this was actually during the anniversary, the 4-year anniversary, I did the same thing with the androids when they were the dominant character in the game, just because everything is so dependent on them, right? That I feel like, since I'm going to be talking about the character number 1 so much throughout this video, that it makes sense just to start with him, and then it will become more clear and obvious why I have the list the way it is. So let's go ahead and jump into number 1 on the list, and then we will move to number 10, and then, sort of make our way through the list from there. All right, so we're going to start off with the number 1 character in the game, to the surprise of absolutely nobody. It's going to be LF Beast Gohan. If you guys have been playing the game at, for any amount of time over the course of the past, 2-3 days since this guy's come out, this should not be a surprise to anybody. It's just been an insane few days here, seeing how dominant this character is. And if you take a look at the history of, quote unquote, best characters in the game, I think this Beast Gohan, when you consider everything he's doing, probably is the closest to the most complete and most perfect character we've ever gotten. Like, he is the closest specimen to an actually perfect unit. This guy's pretty much, just to off the top of my head rattle out a few things he's doing. Most of the time he's got double card draw speed. Most of the time he's nullifying special cover change. He has insane amounts of damage inflicted. He actually does a pretty good job at tanking hits. He grabs endurance when the enemy uses a rising rush. He's able to restore his vanish through his blue card, green card, and ultimate. What else? He can destroy the entire enemy's hand through his built-up green cards. He actually has pretty good levels of healing when allies are dead, remember, whenever he switches in and stuff like that. He has a double cover change versus strike and blasts that are comboable with blue cards, which Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta and UI Goku can't do. He's destroying Dragon Balls, his main ability, when an ally is defeated. Like, this guy you could just keep going on and on and on about every single thing this character is doing. There is no character that has ever come out in the history of this game that has done as many things as this Gohan is doing right now. And I don't really think there's much more that needs to be said about this character and why he's as good as he is. But the last thing I will mention is that if you look at the prior list, and honestly the past few months leading up to this release, they've been really, really hammering us with really powerful red characters. The game has been dominated by the color red for such a long period of time, and very, very, common opinion that red was the most powerful color in the game up until this point. So to see this Beast Gohan be blue, and then also on top of that, obviously not being a Super Saiyan, so that sort of leaves Cooler out of the equation. Release like this is one of the reasons why you see such a massive shakeup in the best characters from this Gohan releasing. Non-Super Saiyan blue character doing as much as he's doing with how strong he is, when most of the best characters in the game are red leading up to this. Like, this was a massive, like, literally turned the meta on its head, essentially. So Beast Gohan, number 1. Let's move on to number 10, and then we'll move back through there leading up to number 2. How absurd it feels to put this character at number 10. I actually can't even believe this is happening right now. LF Android 17 and 18 at number 10 on the list. They are in last place on the top 10 character list. I mean, granted, it's still the top 10 best units in the game, so it's not like they're bad, right? But it just, considering how long this character has been dominant for since they came out. I mean, they came out back in April of this year. It's been basically 6 months since they've released, and finally we are starting to see them sort of fall off. But not even just falling off in terms of them getting power crept. It's falling off in terms of just Beast Gohan just incinerates this character. I remember I fought it was like a 12 or 13 star android. They were double Zenkai buffed with an HP bench, and Beast Gohan just like one-shot him, like casually one-shot 17 from full HP with his blue card. Like it's just like, remember, yes, this character has a tag switch mechanic. They can switch their element factor. 18 does technically have type advantage over Gohan, but the thing to remember is Gohan is type neutral against damage received for the first 10 counts when he switches in. And he's actually able to pretty much neutralize his character, because on top of doing that, he can go type neutral on his blue card. He can go type neutral on his green card for his offensive side as well. So he's able to really hang in here with these guys. And I feel like Gohan is probably the best counter to the androids we've ever seen. And with as good as he is, with as omnipresent as he is across every single team that you're fighting in PvP right now, you know, how many superhero teams do you run into with Pan, Gohan, and Piccolo? These guys, like, they're struggling in this meta right now to actually keep up with Gohan. And I think, you know, us finally starting to see this unit drop off a little bit is probably good for the game, just because of how annoying they are to fight and how just stupid this unit has been for the past 6 months. So Android 17 and 18 at number 10. I feel like if you want to put them a little bit higher, you probably could, just because of what they're able to do still. But in terms of this meta, I don't know. I feel like number 10 is actually a good spot for them, which just, it just feels really weird to say. Alrighty, coming in at number 9, we have Yellow Tapion. Definitely a character that has aged extremely well since his release in the anniversary. This guy, I mean, how many months old is this guy at this point? 4 months or old or something like that? Like 4 months? That's not like, he's not a new character anymore. And I feel like just what he's bringing to the table in terms of his support, in terms of his locking, his very annoying abilities, the Hirudegarn death buff mechanic, the healing, the green card force draw, all the things that he's doing that are not necessarily just, okay, he's tanking well, or okay, he's doing a lot of damage. Like the intangibles. I think that that's very, very important for a lot of these characters. And one of the main things is his Rising Rush mechanic, where he reduces his sub count by 10 when the enemy Rising Rushes. That allows this Tapion to actually work exceptionally well with Gohan, with units like Cooler, with Ultra Broly. A lot of these insanely powerful movies characters that we've gotten recently, I don't know why they just keep buffing movies, right? It's just insane at this point. But the movies team being as powerful as it is, and this Tapion essentially only being on 2 teams, right? He's on powerful opponent in movies. That's what has allowed him to age as well as he has been, because he's been like pretty much the best supplementary character to all those really, really strong movie releases. And if you want to put this guy higher on the list, I'm actually not opposed to it. I feel like you could do that. And the one thing that I will say also about Tapion before we move on is, if you pair this guy alongside Beast Gohan, because Gohan actually does end up getting the endurance from the Rising Rush, it's actually very similar to a Jiren's mechanic, LF Jiren's mechanic. In fact, it's like the exact same mechanic as LF Jiren. If the enemy does decide to rush you, you could simply sack off Tapion, and then from that point forward, your Gohan is going to just have endurance for the rest of the match. So that is a very, very strong mechanic this guy brings to the table, along with everything else that he's doing. With how strike-oriented this meta is as well, I mean, take a look at like all the best characters in the game, like Cooler, Broly, Gohan, all strike-based units. Ultra Gogeta, Ultra Vegito, Dragon Fist. Like literally, you look at the top 10, it's pretty much dominated by strike characters. And this Tapion having that strike locking ability whenever he's hit does also make a big difference. So Tapion just continues to be a very, very good character, very valuable character, supporting character. And I think he actually will probably outlast most of the other characters in this top 10 list just because of those factors. So Tapion coming in at number 9. Let's move on to number 8. All right, coming in at number 8 on the list here, we have Ultra Super Gogeta, a very difficult decision. This entire list was just so tough to make. It's like, you could put this guy higher, you could put him lower, like whatever you feel like doing. But the main reason why I ended up putting this guy a lot lower on this list right now as opposed to the prior list is for the main reason being that this guy just feels like a worse version of Beast Gohan, right? I mean, Beast Gohan is a movie's character, but Beast Gohan is basically doing the same things that this Gogeta is doing, except just better. Obviously, if the Fusion team gets like a major buff, which, spoiler alert, I think they probably will during Legends Festival, which should be soon, there's really no area where I really see myself running Gogeta over Beast Gohan on literally any team. Like, where am I using Ultra Gogeta over Beast Gohan? The one thing that this Ultra Gogeta does do, obviously, that Beast Gohan does not do, is he just still has that locking mechanic, which we knew, when he came out, we knew that locking mechanic was going to age extremely well, and of course it has. So that's definitely the one area where this Gogeta has sort of an advantage over Beast Gohan. Then I guess another area you could say as well is the effect of the anti-endurance on the ultimate that he gets for 30 counts. That is also very strong. So this Gogeta still obviously is, honestly, he's aged extremely well. He's still able to put in work like almost as if he was a brand new character. But it's like, I'm just not using him over Beast Gohan. I'm just not doing it. The one downside to this guy that I'll say is that him being a Super Saiyan does hurt not only him, but it hurts the rest of the team that he's on because of Cooler. Cooler, like, just because Beast Gohan came out, I don't think you're like never gonna see Cooler again. Cooler still, like, Beast Gohan and Cooler together works well. So I still think that's something you're going to be seeing quite often. But I just, like, we are now at the point where Ultra Super Gogeta now has started to feel the effects of power creep, where we're getting characters like Beast Gohan just who are straight up better and doing everything that they're doing but better, pretty much, with a few exceptions that I mentioned already. But Ultra Gogeta at number 8. Let's go ahead and move on to number 7. Coming in at number 7, we have LF Super Saiyan 3 Dragon Fist Goku. So obviously, with the best character in the game being Blue, it's a pretty easy argument to make that it's like, oh well, because he's green, he's going to be good against Gohan. Normally that would be the case, but the thing with Gohan is he kind of doesn't care about green characters. He can go type neutral on his blue card when his gauge is fully built up. He can go type neutral for a few counts on green card when his gauge is fully built up. And remember, for the first 10 counts upon switch in, for the first, I think it's 5 switch ins, he's type neutral against green types defensively. So in a lot of cases, Gohan doesn't really care about Dragon Fist being green. But I think Dragon Fist is strong enough, especially if you have him in the correct setup, maybe with like Tapion and stuff like that, maybe Cooler buffing up his strike attack, stuff like that. Dragon Fist with that cover null for the first, I believe it's 10 or 15 counts, something like that. Well, for the first 2 times he switches in, like, that's enough to allow him to build up his damage to the point where even type neutral on Gohan, he'll still be able to put in work for sure. And then the last thing, just to quickly mention, is that this guy is really strong in terms of his ultimate. Once you get that gauge fully built up, the unique gauge, I think even against a type neutral Gohan, he's pretty much able to just one-shot him in the right scenario, right? You drop combo into the ultimate, remove his vanishing gauge, and you just unleash the Dragon Fist, and essentially everything is just going to die to that still. I don't think we've reached the point, with the exception of like Ultra Broly, where you can just throw a character out there with a raw ultimate from type neutral Goku, and have them basically almost always live without question. I think Broly's pretty much the only character that really doesn't care about that, because he's like the most busted defensive unit we've ever seen. But Dragon Fist, I think, is still strong. The one area where obviously he doesn't really live up to to the modern characters is defensively. He does feel a little bit weak, and that doesn't really bode well for him in terms of Beast Gohan running around, because if this Goku was actually better defensively, then I would definitely see a world where you'd put him up even higher on this list because of how well he's able to actually go toe-to-toe with Beast Gohan. And that's, again, thanks to the green typing. But it's not like he's out of the woods because he's green. Gohan could still incinerate him. So I didn't want to put him too high on the list, but I didn't want to put him too low because I feel like this guy definitely can still put in work in this meta. So Dragon Fist, number 7. Let's move on to number 6. Alrighty, coming in at number 6, we have LF Green Super Saiyan Trunks. Definitely a character that I knew was eventually going to see a big glow up. I think on my previous video, what ranking did I have him at? I don't remember the exact number, but I remember saying specifically that as soon as this guy gets help in the form of better hybrid Saiyans, stuff like that, we will see this guy move up because he is super powerful. And we definitely have seen a lot of hybrid assistance recently, right? We have Future Gohan getting his unique equipment, which definitely helps the hybrid team. We have Beast Gohan dropping, best character ever. He's a hybrid. We have the Red Pan dropping, who's probably the best support character we've ever seen ever released in the game. And they're all hybrids. So at this point, I would say that this Trunks definitely has obtained the help that he needs to see a significant boost to his potential in the game. And I feel like him at number 6 is a good spot. And on top of the fact that he's green, right? Being able to actually pair well against, or match up well against Beast Gohan, and also pair up well with Beast Gohan. I think this guy and Beast Gohan together could definitely have a decent impact. But the one thing to remember, as always, moving forward now, we always have to keep this in mind, is that this guy is a Super Saiyan. So you run this guy next to Beast Gohan, for instance, on the Hybrid Saiyan team, and what does that do? That exposes now Beast Gohan to potentially just getting crunched by Cooler, right? If you pair up a Super Saiyan with Beast Gohan, just because Beast Gohan himself is not a Super Saiyan, as long as you have one on the team, it opens up Beast Gohan to being susceptible to Cooler's craziness. So that is the one downside to this character, but I feel like with all the buffs this guy has received in the form of other characters like Pan, like the Future Gohan equipment buffing him up as much as it did, this guy's definitely a threat now, and his damage is no joke at all. So Future LF Green Trunks at number 6. Let's move on to the top 5. So starting off with the top 5 here, at number 5 we have Ultra Super Vegito. Again, this list was so hard to make. I almost felt like I had no idea what I was even doing making this list. That's how difficult this was. This guy could be as high as 3 if you want. This guy could be as low as not even on the list if you want to go that far. But when Cooler came out, it was like, why did they want this guy out of the meta so fast, right? Ultra Super Vegito wasn't that old when Cooler, because Cooler released back in September, I think. Yeah, back in September. And this guy released in July. So 2 months passed, and then you released probably the most targeted counter of all time in the history of this game to counter this guy out of the meta 2 months after he came out. An anniversary summonable Ultra character. You're like, okay, yeah, we need to get this guy out of here, right? But now with the release of Beast Gohan, obviously that is heavily affecting Cooler's, I think, overall effect and stranglehold on the game. And so what that does is it actually creates an opportunity for this guy to see a bit of a resurgence into the meta as well. I would say the matchup between this Ultra Super Vegito and Beast Gohan is not as one-sided as you would think. Beast Gohan clearly is the better unit. He's honestly, Beast Gohan kind of just feels like a better version of this Ultra Super Vegito. But I would argue that in a straight up competition of like all around effectiveness, like Ultra Super Vegito can kind of go toe to toe with this Gohan. He's one of the few units in the game, like one of the 2 or 3 characters in the game who legitimately matches up kind of okay with Beast Gohan in a one-on-one situation. Like this Ultra Super Vegito is a crazy 1v1 unit. His combo potential, his green card being a long range priority gaining green card is insanely good. His Vanish Restoration on his main ability. Like he's doing a lot of these things that you would want to see out of like a one-man army style character. And with Cooler not as prevalent as he was like a few weeks ago in the meta, this guy seeing a resurgence is really, really not out of the question. And the other point I do want to make is this guy's effectiveness versus Ultra Broly. Ultra Broly is probably the most valuable unit in the game because he's the only character. We'll get to Ultra Broly soon, don't worry. But I feel like he's probably one of the most valuable units in the game because he is the only character that can actually effectively tank Ultra Gohan's full combos and not even care at all. But when you talk about Ultra Vegito, Broly is not really tanking Ultra Vegito that well. So pretty much the only character in the game as Ultra Super Vegito is who can pretty much just completely break down Ultra Broly's defenses, and that does matter. So it's very tough. It's very, very tough to accurately place this guy on, you know, is he number 3? Is he 2? Is he 5? Is he 7? Is he 10? Like, it's almost impossible for me to just pinpoint accuracy do this, but I think I'm pretty comfortable with him being at number 5 because I could see units above him being better and more valuable in this meta. And then the units below him I don't think are as good. So Ultra Super Vegito coming in at number 5, definitely a character they've been handling him strangely. So we'll see what they do moving forward. But let's move on to number 4. All right, so coming in at number 4, we have LF Final Form Cooler. There's not really much I need to say about this character, honestly. I feel like it kind of just speaks for itself. This guy was just probably the biggest mistake they've ever made. It's kind of weird to say because you would think like, oh, Beast Gohan's better than him, so isn't he a bigger mistake than Cooler? But the answer is probably no, because this Cooler, I would actually consider this Cooler as more of a gimmick character than an actual, like, you know, best unit in the game contender. Just because of the fact that if he lands that first strike card on you, like, you lose. even against Beast Gohan, right? If the enemy doesn't have a Super Saiyan character and this Cooler is not type neutral versus Beast Gohan, you catch Beast Gohan in a strike card, you main ability, you rush him, he's probably dead, right? So this Cooler, even against the best blue character that's not a Super Saiyan this game's ever seen, this Cooler can still kill him, like, with relative ease, right? You just catch him in one strike card and then you have tools available to you through Cooler's kit that he will let you actually just straight up kill that unit. And for that reason, I don't really feel comfortable moving Cooler below the top 4 spot. You can put him higher, obviously, if you wanted to, but I certainly don't think he deserves to be put lower than number 4 on this list. He's still able to do a bunch of other things. Obviously, he nullifies cover change with his main ability pops. He's grabbing double card draw speed. He's gaining keying cards whenever the enemy switches. Like, this guy is still an issue. He's still a problem. But they certainly... like the devs certainly recognized that they didn't really want this guy running around and creating such an issue in the game for a while, so that's why they, I think, made Beast Gohan the way he was and also made him blue. So I don't really think I need to say anything else about Cooler. I'm pretty comfortable with him at number 4. This is probably one of the positions on this list where I really didn't have an issue with him being there, and I wasn't really that flustered with this one. So Final Form Cooler number 4. Let's move on to the top 3. Now this is where things start to get crazy. We have Superhero Pan coming in at number 3 on my top 10 list. So I think I did mention this earlier in this video, but I think I probably would say that this Pan is the single best support character we've ever seen in this game. What I like to say about her is she's kind of like a combination, a mixture of Green Vados and Yellow Angel Vegeta. And I would say that, like, throughout, if you look at the game's history and look at, like, the best support units, like, those were probably the 2 best support characters we've seen on their respective teams. But this Pan is basically taking aspects from Vados, taking aspects from Angel Vegeta, honestly, probably taking the best aspects of both those units and combining them together. And on top of doing that, she actually does some pretty good damage. Like, her blue card hits like a truck. She also has the grade 8 Vegeta blue card mechanic where she's lowering her own sub count by 5, which honestly, that's probably that grade 8 Vegeta's best mechanic. Like, that's the best thing he's doing, I think. So that's pretty insane. She's able to reduce... This character is able to reduce sub counts by, what is it, 8 or something? Let me just see. So what you can do with her is, if you have a green card in your hand already, you can switch into her, pop your green card, shortens ally sub count by 3. Pop her main ability, shortens ally sub count by 3. Then you can go back into the green card because she draws a green and a blue from her main ability and reduce sub count by 3 again. So you can actually reduce sub count by 9 with this Pan in the span of 1 count. Like, literally, you could just spam 3 stop times in a row, all reducing sub count by 3. They're all afflicting the enemy with all these ridiculous abilities here. They basically have 0 key, they can't use their main ability, they have no key recovery, and they have HP restoration down. Like, you can't do anything to this Pan. Something else to remind people of is, where is this? I'm trying to remember where all this was. Maybe it's over here. Right here. She reduces enemies' ki by 15 when she gets attacked. Do you guys understand how annoying that is? remember when Green Goku Black first came out and he reduced enemy ki by 5 whenever he was hit, and people were like, this is the most annoying mechanic they've ever introduced. This is that, but times 3. This is literally 3 times the effectiveness of what that is. She's also doing the like sort of reverse of what Final Form Cooler does, where she's locking you in for 2 counts when she gets hit, which actually does matter because at the same time of you, getting locked in for 2 counts means that you have to then do another attack to keep the combo going, which means you're going to get your ki reduced by a further 15. So basically, you're losing 30 ki before you're able to switch out because you have to do 2 attacks to actually prolong the combo enough to switch out. And then all while that's going on, she's reducing Gohan and Piccolo subcounts by 1. So obviously, that's for Beast Gohan, right? So she's reducing Beast Gohan subcount by 1. So if you decide to rush, you most likely will be able to bring Beast Gohan back in because the subcounts will be there. So there's, I don't even, like, the one, I guess, criticism you can make of Pan is that she's red, so Beast Gohan's going to kill her, but, I mean, she goes type neutral with her main ability for 60 counts. 60. That's a third of the entire fight. Also getting 60 counts of card draw speed. Like, there's... This character is just ridiculous. And then if that wasn't enough, the other thing to mention, too, is that she's stacking damage for her allies through every time she's using a strike and a blast card. Do I need to keep going? Like, this Pan, they obviously designed her in a way so that she would work really well with Gohan, and then also the new Piccolo as well, the Power Awakened Piccolo. But I feel like what you probably are going to be seeing moving forward is this Pan just being on the leader slot of every single team. Because if what I just said wasn't enough, look at this. Look at this. Look at this Z ability. She basically has, what is this, like the red God Goku Z ability, the 20% HP and then 20% critical Z ability. Like, you put her in the leader slot of any team, she's the best support in the game. She has one of the best Z abilities in the game. And then what you can do is you can fill in the rest of your bench without having to worry about an HP buffer. You can just fill it up with Zenkai buffs. This Pan is probably, like, when you consider, I guess, the future of this game, like, let's just say when Legends Festival happens, guess who you're probably putting in the leader slot of your team alongside whatever new LF or Ultra character we get as part of Legends Festival? It's probably Pan. It's probably this unit. So her value is just gonna, continue going up as we get better units. And I see her aging as well as, if not even better than Green Vados. And you guys know how that was. So there's not really much more that needs to be said about Pan. Let's move on to number 2, and that will round out our list. All right, so we are going to finish things up with number 2 on the list. This is Ultra Legendary Super Saiyan Broly. I feel like people might be a little bit confused as to this guy being so high on the list, because when this guy came out, I actually did see a lot of people that weren't really that impressed by what this guy was doing. And I would probably argue that this guy is not your traditional Ultra character, right? We've seen with pretty much every other Ultra unit, Gogeta, Blue Kaioken Goku, Vegito, they all are just doing so much damage. They're comboing forever. They all have these insanely ridiculous offensive mechanics, but this guy was certainly, built with a different purpose in mind. This guy's purpose, even though he's a melee type, he's not a defensive type, this guy's purpose is to be able to sustain your team, being able to tank, being able to disrupt the enemy. That's his role. And I would say, with a fair degree of confidence, this is pretty much the only character in the game that is able to effectively tank entire combos from Beast Gohan and be completely fine. I remember fighting 10 plus starred Beast Gohan, Zenkai buff, supported by Pan. This Broly didn't care. This Broly was tanking those hits fine. He was healing up. He was actually going toe to toe with Beast Gohan, and he was winning. Like, he actually could go toe to toe with Beast Gohan and be completely fine. That is a very, very high praise that I could give to this Broly. Now, clearly, he is in the boost system. He's in the featured boost right now, but so is Beast Gohan. So it's like that kind of cancels it out a little bit. But there's really not another character that I feel more comfortable using, in a defensive capacity than this Ultra Broly. I would actually go as far as to say that this Ultra Broly releasing when he did kind of saved the game in a way. Because during the Cooler meta, like, you literally got hit by Cooler once and you lost the game. And this Broly kind of alleviated that from happening and kind of, I guess, did not allow for that to happen with the way that he's built, with his cover changes, with his just straight up bulk, with his healing. Like, I've had this Broly live rushes from Cooler, straight up, just survive a Rising Rush from Cooler. I've had this Broly survive Rising Rushes from a lot of meta characters, and his healing's off the charts. But the one thing I want to say before we end is this Broly works insanely well with Pan. The Pan that we just looked at, Superhero Pan. That Superhero Pan is stacking HP restoration and damage whenever she switches out. She can stack up to an extra 20% HP restoration for the whole team once she's switched out 4 times, which is pretty easy to do. And so what that allows this Broly to do is, remember, this Broly is healing by 10% whenever he switches into the battlefield, applies the following effects to self when this character enters the battlefield, restores health by 10%. Okay, so that's 10% healing he gets through just entering the battlefield. Then on top of that, he's healing by 15% whenever his unique gauge is activated. Then he's healing by, 30%? 20% when he's popping his main ability. So all of these healing effects are all amplified by Pan's HP restoration buffs. And so the way that I like to build this Broly is just completely defensive. I'm giving him all the HP restoration, all the defense equips. And paired up against Pan, this Broly has like 4 million HP. He's Zenkai buffed by the Dragon Ball Super Purple Broly. He is unable to die. You literally cannot kill this Broly. He is unkillable. You have to rush him to kill him, essentially. And if you don't rush him and you try and kill him through normal means, like, Beast Gohan combos and stuff like that, he's going to destroy your Vanishing Gauge, he's going to heal up, and you have to switch, and then all of a sudden you're at a disadvantage. So this Broly, I think, is really what actually allows PvP to be semi-interesting instead of it being just like the Beast Gohan show. This is the character that they were sure that they wanted to release before Beast Gohan, because if they didn't release this guy before Beast Gohan came out, you would have a situation where it's, 17 and 18 all over again. I feel like this guy is the only character in the game that can effectively almost always put Beast Gohan in check with how defensive he is, and with how, I guess, I would call this guy, I wouldn't even call him a defensive character because he can also do a lot of damage. I'd call this guy more of a bruiser style unit. Like, he can rough you up, he can do damage, but his main role is just to be, sitting there and just tanking everything and allowing your team to actually function. So this is Ultra Legendary Super Saiyan Broly at number 2, a character that I think will continue seeing a lot of value as we move forward. So just to recap the list real quick, at number 10 we have LF Android 17 and 18. Number 9 we have Yellow Tapion. Number 8 we have Ultra Super Gogeta. Number 7 we have LF Super Saiyan 3 Dragon Fist Goku. Number 6 we have the Green Super Saiyan Trunks. Number 5 we have Ultra Super Vegito. Number 4 is LF Final Form Cooler. Number 3 is Dragon Ball Super Superhero Pan. Number 2 is Ultra Legendary Super Saiyan Broly. And then number 1 is LF Beast Gohan. So like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, let me know down below if you guys agree with the placements, disagree with the placements, if you think there's characters on this list that deserve to not be on this list, or if there's characters that are not on the list that deserve to be on the list. Again, keep in mind, this list was so difficult for me to make. I remember, I basically, what I do is I create basically a notepad on my phone, and I'm like, okay, who deserves to be on here, who deserves not to be on here? And I just remember staring at this for so long, and I'm like, is this actually what I think? And this is what I came up with. It was very tough. I would not argue if you have different placements. It's definitely up to interpretation here, but hope you guys were able to enjoy regardless, and I will see you all in the next one.